welcome to Life Edge, because life just simply doesn't have to be mediocre. And today we've got with us Bob Burg, somebody who's not mediocre, somebody who writes wonderful books and great things to help people have better lives. We also have maybe Dr. Susan Nash with us. She hasn't come in. I thought she was coming in today, but she may be traveling. We'll find out, or she's got weather in Oklahoma. That could do it too. Here we go. This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation at www.relate.com, your training and video partner. And we are back, and here is Bob Burg. He is author of the GoGiver series, co-author. He's written that with John David Mann, another very good writer. He also has written Endless Referrals, wonderful book on sales and marketing and relationships. Bob, how are you?
I'm great, Rick. Great. Fantastic to see you.
Same here. You're always a pleasure to have on. And what's new in your life? What have you been doing? I know books are being written or expanded on. What's current?
Well, we have a online course we're in post-production for called Referrals, the GoGiver way, and have been holding a live 2-day workshop on that topic as well. So that's pretty much what's been filling up a lot of my time.
You know, that's a really interesting combination of the two, because Endless Referrals just has a lot of practical, down-to-earth advice, and the GoGiver is just magical. I swear it's magical. And those two combined, that's interesting. That should be a darn good buy for the money, if you will. That's cool. So you're going to do an online course?
Yeah, we are. And we've been calling it the Neverending Project because it's taken a longer than what it was supposed to take. But,
I know.
That's part of life.
Isn't it funny how that happens? And you have the content for everything. They're time-consuming, these courses.
Yeah, it's actually the taping it, or actually I'm not sure it's not we can tape, but the video recording of it, that was actually easier. I mean, that took a few days, but that was the easy part. It's the post-production and some of the work and some of the mess-ups that have been along the way. And so it's just, Yeah,
we just put up our first course on YouTube.
It's so smooth, it doesn't always, so you adjust, you call some audibles, and eventually you get it done.
Yep, that sounds great. Hey, just speaking of audibles, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did. It was fantastic.
That was the best Super Bowl I've seen it as long as I can remember, because they've been lousy. This one was good. It was fun, and even the halftime show was fun. My people in Florida put on good shows.
It's that Miami thing, right?
It is. I was thinking of Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine when they were playing. I was going, boy, they're good. And I've seen both of them before. Just that in combination, they did a good halftime show. Even the TV commentators were saying, that's got to be the best halftime show we can remember.
You know, I was watching just in amazement as far as, I don't know how much time they had to prepare for that, but if you noticed, I mean, the camera angles, the way everything was staged, certainly the dancing itself between the two stars and all the supporting cast, it was really, I don't know how people can do something like that. I mean, it was a wonderful production, and it was a team effort.
That's exactly what I was telling my wife. The background chorus never stopped moving. And they were flawless. I didn't see anybody make mistake. It was just flawless, and there was a lot of timing in that thing. It was incredible. Yeah. So it was fun. It was fun. I heard some commentators later say we thought Jennifer Lopez was ill-dressed. Yeah, she wasn't dressed at all, but that's okay. It was still fun. Anyway, that was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed the Super Bowl. The first time, and I almost didn't want to watch it. Oh, it's going to be boring. Though it was good. It was a good game, and it just did really well. And the halftime was fun. So. Yeah, I was thinking, boy, they know how to put on a good show in Florida, because they got that whole Miami Sound Machine going, and it was fun. Good. I think people in the audience couldn't stop applauding and screaming throughout the whole halftime performance. This is amazing. So yeah, that was good. I've been listening more and more to your Endless Referrals podcast recently, and there's so much good advice there. And a lot of people probably don't know this about you. But when you were younger, you boxed. You were a boxer, and you know how to take care of yourself. And yet, in your Endless Referrals, one of the recent shows I was watching, you were talking about how you almost got into a crash with somebody in a parking lot. The person came out angry, and you just kind of quietly deflected it, and then you wound up in a room next to that person, I guess, giving a presentation or at the same trade show. And it was funny because I was going, here's a guy who could easily take out the guy who's just having a brat attack, but you handled it in a way that says, you know what, I don't have to stoop to the anger level. You know, we all get angry when we drive every so often, but usually we calm ourselves down in a second. And you went to a very nonviolent, friendly way to deal with it. And person didn't know how to react and just became nice after it. And, you know, people probably think, that was staged. It's not real. It can happen. It can happen for sure. And, you know, how many times have you done things like that where you find yourself in that kind of situation and you just quietly deflect?
It actually happens a lot. But I think I even said on the video, I think, something like, I tell you, I share this story not because it's so unusual, but because it's actually very usual.
Yeah.
Not almost hitting someone with my car, that's hopefully very unusual, but in the way that any situation can really be handled when we look for ways to first respond rather than react, which is something I first learned listening to a Zig Ziglar tape about 39 years ago, I guess. And then just being able to really look for ways you can, you know, take a potential enemy and turn them into a friend. And it's, you know, and usually it's pretty simple to do. And I mean, in this case, what happened was I almost hit the guy as he was getting out the driver's side of his car, and he gave me a really angry look. I mean, a really nasty look, and because that's just how he obviously handles things, and people react, which is what he did in certain ways. And I just, you know, basically put a friendly smile of apology on my face right away and just went, sorry, you know, through the windshield, sorry. And right away he went, you know, as though he was surprised, and he goes, no problem, you know. And then what happened was I was walking in, you know, I was in the car fiddling with my materials that I needed. He walked in, and when I was walking to my meeting room, I saw him outside another meeting room, which I guess was his. And when I realized we were going to make eye contact, I was just, you know, I was going to say, hey, I'm really sorry. I should have been more careful getting out of my car. But he actually, before I could say anything, he said, hey, I'm really sorry. Or I should have been, I was about to say, I'm sorry, I should have been more careful parking my car or watch where I was going. And before I could say anything, he said, oh, hey, I'm really sorry. I should have been more careful getting out of my car. And what it really shows is just if you give someone an out, if you give someone an opportunity to not, I guess, save face or to realize that you mean no harm, typically, you know, unless the person's really got issues, it's going to turn out well. It's just really how you. Yeah,
I'll never forget one time that we were the top reseller for an e-learning company that had products, and we were good sellers for them. And at one point, I don't know what it was, we were competing with the same company for a deal, and technically, I wrote an email to one of the guys internally, but accidentally CC'd the sales guy from the other company. And what I said was, I think he's afraid, and he'll probably give in on this one. So the guy writes me back a note and goes, you know, Rick, I thought I was the only idiot who ever sent letters to the wrong people, but now I know I'm not alone. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And I started laughing when I read that. I wrote him back. I think I called him and I said, you know, Marty, you're right. I shouldn't have said that. And frankly, we've been working a long time. And sorry, I sent the email to the wrong person. You should never have gotten that. And it wasn't meant in a derogatory way. We laughed about it. Still friends. You know, it's like, but you're right. It could have gone, ooh, that was totally taken out of context. You start getting angry with someone. And then you have a situation for no real reason. And you're right. It's so much easier. And what I bring out of what you did is you could be nice always, but you could also, if you want to, you could have probably taken the guy out. You didn't have to, and you don't need to go to that level. You know, we live in a quote unquote civilized society, and it's nice to see because there are a lot of people out there who could take people out and do. You know, they abuse what they can do, which isn't good. You know, I think, you know, I've been teaching martial arts for literally on and off 55 years since I started practicing when I was 10. So it's been a long time, 56 years. And I've been in a lot of situations where I could have easily just taken someone out and I go, no, you know what, that's there's no worth to that. What am I going to gain? Nothing. And what's the value in it? And like you said, if you can make somebody a friend or at least not an enemy, you've come a long way. You won that situation, or both people won. It's a nice place to be. And that's why when I was thinking, when you just said that, endless referrals plus the GoGiver, that's a beautiful combination of products. And by the way, I didn't know you were doing that. So what you got me thinking immediately when you said that, what a great combination of the philosophy of creating relationships with the philosophy of giving, and also helping relationships along, looking for things, and just creating that mindset. So you're kind of not duplicating, but doubling the power. You're square rooting the power of both of those methodologies. So that's going to be great. So if you're watching the show, keep your eyes out for that. We'll put links below to Bob's website and everything else so you can check it out. But that's going to be a killer training series. I can just see it now. I can hear it almost.
Yeah, well, we had the last one a couple of weeks ago, and it was really good. We had a very high quality audience, so it's 2 days, and it's not just me talking up there. It's really very, very interactive. Plus, what's very helpful is there's about 25 other people in the room. Again, they tend to be very successful anyway, and so the back and forth that goes on and the exchange of ideas really just adds a whole new dimension to that. So I think we're going to limit this one to 30 and see if it works with a few more people there. But we want to keep it, and we plan to keep this very, very small like that, so that over 2 days it's very, very, very close, very intimate.
Yeah. It makes a difference. Are you doing those local, or are you traveling?
No, we hold them in Orlando, which is about a 2.5 hour drive for me, but it makes it easier for the people coming in from overseas.
Sure.
Where I live, which is just north of West Palm Beach, I always say you can't get there from here, or you can't get here from there. So it's just easier for everybody to come into Orlando. So,
So you're actually just north of Palm Beach?
Yeah. I'm in Jupiter, which is about 25 minutes.
Oh, that's close. Last year we were in Del Rey, and then we flew out of. We were really close. Oh shoot! I didn't think it was that close. I would have probably.
Del Rey is about as far south from West Palm Beach as I am north.
Okay, that's not that bad. That's not bad. Like a half-hour drive, maybe 40 minutes max.
40.
Next time we're out that way, I have to keep that in mind. Darn. But anyway, so that's good. That's a great conference. Are you getting a lot of overseas people coming?
We didn't have a lot of we had a couple of people at this one, but we typically, when we do these programs, because the other ones we had, remember, we had about a 4-year series where we were doing the GoGiver Entrepreneurs Academy. And those, we typically had several from overseas each time. I think our furthest one was from South Africa, but we typically had a couple from England. We had one from Poland, from different places. Singapore at the last one we did. So we expect we probably will again at these two. And,
that's great. Now, the GoGiver is a book that's been published worldwide. Do you have a pretty big audience overseas, or is there still a lot more in the Americas?
Well, it's in 28 languages, so we've been fortunate to have a pretty good overseas audience, some of the different countries.
That's great. That's great. Are you planning any more GoGiver books? Anything in the future that you can kind of sneak peek at? Or?
Nothing at the moment.
Not yet.
I've been so involved with this one, with getting this the video out, the online course out, and setting up these seminars. And John has been really busy with different books that he has out with different authors. As you know, John is very much in demand because he's such a great writer. And I feel lucky I'm able to, kind of get to him. And so, just because he is so in demand. So, So right now, we don't have another, I don't think, GoGiver book in mind for a while.
Yeah. I was talking to John not long ago, and he said he's got he's doing some his first novel. He said he's never written his own novel.
Yeah.
He's got,
yes, he is. I can't wait to read it.
It's going to be interesting. He's got that. He's got some other stuff. I think 2 other books he's writing. And so you're right. He is busy, and he's a great writer. Yeah, he really is. He's got that knack for storytelling that a lot of people don't have. Plus, he does the parable type storytelling, which I find really interesting. between you and him, you guys put out some of the best content I've ever read, and just nice stuff. And it's just great to see. Yeah, I was talking with him one time that, when we were growing up, and I think we're all somewhere around the same age. I think I'm the oldest right now of us three. And it was interesting because when we were growing up, you could go to a B. Dalton or whatever other bookstore, and there were tons of books on how to really get better, how to do this, how to find yourself. And these are books like The GoGiver really is a book that's 30 years after that time, and yet is so apropos for today's day and age, where I don't see as many people on a quest, on that search like we did. And John was agreeing. He goes, yeah, it's not the same search. Well, what do you think? Do you think people are still searching, or is it just different now? It's a different kind of search.
Yeah, that's probably, I guess more it. In a way, it's gotten even more sophisticated. In other ways, things stay the exact same and just show up in different forms. So, I don't know. I'll tell you, are you familiar with Michael Singer, who wrote The Surrender Experiment and, oh my goodness, The Untethered Soul?
I think The Untethered Soul sounds familiar. The other one, no. And the name sounds familiar. So, yeah.
Amazing. If you get a chance to get those, I'll tell you, those two. He wrote The Untethered Soul first. And then a few years later, he wrote The Surrender Experiment. But I actually read The Surrender Experiment first because I just happened to have had that book first. And it was so amazing and so good. And he writes it, very easy to read, but his thought process is just wonderful, a higher level of consciousness. And I thought at the end of that book, I almost didn't get the other one because I thought there's nothing more. This guy gave me so much great information in this book that there's nothing that the Untethered Soul is going to be able to teach me that he hasn't already taught me.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. And the Untethered Soul is just as good. But I would go first with the Surrender Experiment. Oh my goodness, this guy is so good. I recommend it very, very highly.
I'll go check those out. And I've been reading a book recently by Dr. Joe. What's his last name? Dispenza. Do you know Dr. Joe Dispenza?
I know the name, and I've always heard great things about
his
work.
He was in What the Bleep. Remember that movie? Right, he was one of the guys on What the Bleep, and this book I'm reading is called something about breaking the habit of you. It's a very good book. That's actually the second book of his first book on that same topic, but this is more the workbook. It's experiential in a lot of ways. Very, very good book about how mechanical we are, how we do things in a very mechanical way. Our actions are very repetitive, and we act without much thinking. We just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over until you can break those habits. And so he talks about how to break that habit so you're not you anymore. You're you, but you're new again. You quit getting into the rut of everything that we're doing. And I remember when I was younger reading books by Georges Ivanovich Gurdjieff, which was all about the same thing, the habitual us, how habitual we are, how our behaviors tend to be robotic. He called us asleep. We're asleep in some ways. And they were very good books. I've read a lot of the Gurdjieff stuff. But Dispenza's good. I think he's a chiropractor by trade, but he also does probably some other medical type treatments and stuff. But he's very much into the neuropsychology of how we act, behave, and how that can make us different. So I think he gave up his chiropractic practice, and now he's more into that side of treatment and business and everything. Very, very good writer, very down to earth, and the books are interesting. Yeah. Yeah, but I tell you, and I'll say this, I've said this many times, and and just for the audience, Bob's a humble guy. He never brags about anything. When I first read The GoGiver, I just sat there, just transfixed by it. One, I read it very quickly because it was just such an easy read. But two, when I was reading it, it's sort of like, you talk about the books you read and how they touched you. Well, The GoGiver touched me big time. It's just like shaking your soul. It's like, you're paying attention and you're going, I've lived that, or I've experienced that, or and oh, I've got to think about that more. And it was great. It's one of those books that just stays with you, not for days or weeks, years. I think the first time we had you on, it's got to be over 5 years ago, if not 6 more years ago. And it just stays with you to this day. There's always things that come up that remind us, well, the GoGiver, the philosophy, the this, that. And that is, I've told John David the same thing. I go, these books stay with you, and they stay with you in a way that it just doesn't go away. I think, what the small price of the book is worth a fortune internally. That's all I can say. And I really, I've told you this before, but I mean it from the heart. They're good books. They just bring out the best in you. And that's what I love about what you write. You're down to earth, and the Referrals is the same way. It's probably more practical, but within that practical sense, it's also human, caring. There's that GoGiver part also coming out in there. So great stuff. Yeah, just very, very good books and very good information passed along, and practical too, because I'd say you've also got GoGiver like workbooks and workshops. It's not just read it and have a good time and see you later. You guys support the whole practice and method. Can you tell us a little bit about the workshops you do for the GoGiver?
Is what?
Can you tell us a little about the workshops that you do for the GoGiver?
Well, when we had the entrepreneurial one, before this one, that got very deep into people's businesses, and of course it kind of ended up going deep in people's lives because because it was a small. I think I told you it was even a smaller group than the Endless Referrals ones. So what we would do is and these were 2.5 days, and we would go through the 5 laws of the GoGiver, but we would go very, very deep into how it was a part of people's business and thus their lives, because the people who were there, entrepreneurs, there's not much of a separation between their business life and their personal life, as you know. Yeah. And so I would say with that one, it got, with the GoGiver ones, the entrepreneurial ones, it got very deep into that. I think with the Endless Referrals one, especially because it is a little bigger audience, not a big audience, but a bigger one, and it's a little bit more, I don't want to say business focused because the other one was too, but I think the application, because you're talking about actually how to cultivate a referral business, I think the application was more businessy, as opposed to really getting into the person itself. Although I think there's a little carryover there because it's hard to separate those two. So I think that's really what it is. And as you know, and you've said it before with the GoGiver, it's not really just business. It's universal laws. Mm-hmm. So we talk about success, and there's success in many areas of life. There's success in terms of certainly financial, but also physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, probably a dozen other ways. And so if you take the basic principles and you apply them to whatever it is you're wanting to accomplish in whatever area of life, you're going to probably find similar results.
Have you ever been on? I'm just asking because I've been watching this recently on the London Real broadcast.
The what?
It's called London Real. It's put on by Brian. What's his last name? Harold's checking right now. Brian Rose. Sorry, I knew it was something like that. And he's from the States. He was some sort of banker, or actually more in the commodities, or he was something else, derivative banker or something. And he gave it up. He was a mess, total mess, cleaned up his act, and started this broadcast where he deals with people from all walks of life who are writers, doctors, whatever. You'd be a great one for that show. He really puts on some very interesting people and what they've done, what they've seen, how they've grown, and just some very good advice on just about everything. But it's called London Real TV. You can find it on YouTube at youtube.com/London Real, REAL TV, all one word. a real good set of podcasts. It says, I'm going to send him a note and say he should get you on. You'd be wonderful for that show. Next time, if you're ever in London, you could go right on his studio and even interview with him over there. He's done some work through Skype, but he also does them in person. And they're just great. There's very good shows with very different points. I don't agree with all the people he's got on, but some of them are pretty interesting. And I think, like I said, you would fit perfectly in that, in your breadth of experience and the way you touch people. Because all of these people have either written or done other things that can reach people. It's very interesting. Getting back to the GoGiver and what you've done with that, what would you say after writing the books, what has that given back to you the most? Because you've met so many people and had so many classes and done so many things. What has that done for you?
It took my speaking career certainly to a different level, because before the GoGiver, any book that I had out, I certainly used as a positioning tool in terms of speaking business, but it was typically outbound, and it was, again, used it as a proactive marketing tool. Since the GoGiver has been out, we receive a lot more calls from companies and organizations who say, well, the book has gone through our entire team or leadership team or sales team or whatever. Can you come in and speak? What's your fee? Blah, blah, blah. So it's a little different. So that's been, that's certainly a more fun way to do business. I also have a team of certified GoGiver speakers who license the materials that we've developed over the past 30 years or so. And so and these typically are people who are already very successful people in business who at one time read the book and it either made a difference for them, or they had already been doing those very things intuitively, and so when they read the GoGiver, it was just something they related to. But they wanted to have a speaking career, and some of them are we have a couple of CEOs of companies, and we have people who are major producers in certain fields and different so forth who do this part time. Some of them have gone full time speaking, and others just do it as a sort of a side type of thing because they just really love it. But so we enjoy that because obviously it's a way of really having other people from different experiences and taking that message out there into the world. So that's been something that's really provided another outlet, if you will, to get the message out there.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Bob, we are pretty much at the end of our time. And any announcements, anything you want to talk about before or send people to look at?
No, you were kind enough to, I think, put a photo of the Endless Referrals, the Go Giveaway program up there, and I really appreciate that, and we look forward to seeing whoever would like to join us.
Well, that's great, and we'll have links below to your website and to so they can go and either take classes or learn more about it. Buy the books. Go get a Kindle version, get a softcover version, whatever. They're really good books. And Bob doesn't pay me to say this. I would gladly do this for Bob and John David. These guys are great guys, and that's I call it the best we can do is maybe a minor payback for what they give us, and I say that seriously. So definitely take a look at the books, read them. I just gave the book to, I didn't give it to him. He actually bought it. A guy that I actually referred to John David, a guy named Mac McDonald, and he didn't have a farm as far as we know, but I gave his name to John David because he's got a thing called the moccasin approach. And I go, that almost sounds like a GoGiver title. I go, hey, John David, are you interested in... And so John is interested, but he said, right now, I can't breathe. I am underwater with stuff. But he's a guy in England who developed an approach based on emotional intelligence for dealing with corporate life, for dealing with problems internally, getting ahead, whatever it takes to deal with that emotional part of our lives, which is not related to our IQ very well. It's different. And also he has a website called Flow for All, FLOW for FOR all. And Flow for All is a site for anybody who may be suffering from PTSD, has internal things they want to talk about. He did it for the military, in England. He was in the military 22 years, but it applies to military here, other places, and any individual who wants to do poetry, anything to get something off of their backs, off of their chests, who wants to talk and maybe get it out of them. They can put their own names, another name, just whatever it takes, like a little bit of self-therapy, if you will. And he said it's getting really good reception so far, people with a lot of issues from wars or whatever else, or just life. And so, I gave his name along, and he bought the GoGiver, and I asked him last week, we had him on 2 shows in a row, he had a part 1 and 2, and he goes, I love that book. I only started, I'm already in chapter 3, and my God. So he's already a believer. It's great. I'm sure by this week he finished it. I'll give him a call probably tomorrow and see how it went. But he was thrilled. He's a guy probably in his 50s or maybe more, maybe less, somewhere around there. And he's just saying this is wonderful. I wouldn't be surprised if you hear from him too. So if you hear from Mac McDonald, that's it. I'll probably send you an introduction to him, because he's trying to do more work in the States, because he's in England right now. He's Scottish originally. And I think the GoGiver books may fit very well into some of what he's doing. So maybe there's something there. So I'll introduce you guys. But anyway, again, Bob, always a pleasure. It's a new year, new decade. You ready?
Absolutely, as ready as I'll ever be.
Yeah, it should be. It's got to be a good one. We need a good one. And for you folks watching, again, Bob's information is below. Please check it out. Go to Amazon, buy books, or I don't know if you can get the books right from your website, but they're great stuff. Great books, great reading, and they have a meaning. Don't just read it superficially. And Bob, we'll see you next time then on the show, and have a wonderful 2020.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thanks. And